God's story, your life. Unfolding short stories.
It was snowing one day in April as I was driving home through the country, and as I got to the top of a hill, I realized that my car was going to slide and hit this fence, and I was braking and it wasn't slowing down, and I just knew that I was going to get in a car accident, and I was really scared. And as I got to the top of the hill where the fence was, I hit the fence and ended up flipping my car, and it rolled 3 times down the road. I remember in that moment, I was so scared, and I was watching a water bottle fly in front of my face, slow motion. It feels like it was the slowest thing I've ever seen, even though it only took a matter of maybe 5 seconds. And I remember bracing the steering wheel as hard as I could, trying to have the most perfect posture, because I just remember hearing in my head, like, my neck's about to break, my neck's about to break. And I just kept telling myself that, like, almost getting ready for the pain that was about to happen. And as my car stopped rolling, I kind of moved my legs, wiggled my toes, looked down, kind of realized that I not only was alive, but my legs weren't broken, my neck wasn't broken. I was completely fine. I kind of looked around on my glass-covered body and realized that there was glass in my hair, there was glass on my clothes, but there weren't any cuts on my body. No broken bones, no scratches. I was amazed. I remember hanging from the driver's seat into the passenger seat, almost upside down, and I realized that if I don't call somebody, no one's gonna come find me. I'm in the middle of the snow on this old back road in the country. So I started trying to find my phone, and I couldn't find my phone. I didn't know where it was. Everything shifted as the car accident happened. So my only thought was to try to use Siri, even though I've never used Siri in my life. And I would say, "Hey Siri, call Dad. Hey Siri, call Dad." And nothing would happen. I tried that with my mom, with my brothers. I ended up calling my boyfriend at the time, and after a few rings, he picked up, and I just remember describing very quickly and scared where I was, what just happened, and that I needed help.
My husband and I were in bed and asleep. It was probably about 12:30 when all of a sudden there was an extremely loud banging on our front door, and it was persistent, and we jumped out of bed not knowing what was going on. And I just remember running to the front door and opening it up, and it was our daughter's boyfriend at the time. He had terror in his eyes, and he was saying, "She was in a car accident, you need to come, we need to go, she's down the road." And when I asked him, I said, "She was talking to you, so she was okay?" And he said, "Yes, she was hysterical, she was trying to explain where she was." And then all of a sudden she stopped responding, and then he started to cry because when he came up on the scene to see her, she was not responsive. That was what led him to coming to our house and getting us, because he knew that he was going to need help. In that moment as a parent, I just remember my husband and I just going into intense, like praying immediately where we were standing, but getting our shoes on, getting out of the house to be able to go to her. And he drove us, and we were in the car, not sure what we were going to be coming up on when we were going to be driving up to the scene where our daughter, who's 17 years old, was in this terrible car accident.
During the accident, I felt like I was in a movie because there was this loud song blasting in the background, and it was "You Say" by Lauren Daigle. And I remember when I was driving, I wasn't listening to that song, that wasn't queued in a playlist. And as I was driving home, I remember playing one of my country music albums, and it was just shuffling. As soon as I got in the accident, it switched over, and "You Say" by Lauren Daigle was blasting. And the music that I was listening to wasn't that loud. Somehow that song began playing, and it was so loud, over and over, it would repeat. "You say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. And you say I'm held when I'm falling short. And when I don't belong, you say I am yours. And I believe, oh, I believe what you say of me. I believe." And I just remember being in this car, helpless, can't get out of my seatbelt, waiting for help to arrive, listening to this song and just crying because I knew that the Lord protected me throughout this really scary accident. I knew that He protected me. He was the reason why I was okay without a scratch on my body, but I just knew that this was the Lord protecting me.
And when her father and I came up on the scene, that song was just blasting out of her car. And I just remember weeping because this is my daughter. I don't know if she was alive or she was dead. She wasn't responding. She was lifeless. She was limp. And when the police officer, who actually ended up being that boyfriend's father, he looked at my husband, handed our daughter to him, and my husband just crumpled down onto the ground in the middle of the wet pavement and held her. And the only thing that I could think of, and the only thing that he could think of to do, was to pray. And it wasn't just praying of, dear God, help. It was like praying like life into her body. I command life into this body. I started just praying every promise that I ever knew was spoken over Ireland's life. I just knew to start saying those, almost like as a way to look death in the face and say, you don't have the jurisdiction. You cannot take her from us, and continuing to just pray over her. And my husband did the same thing, like telling her, you're going to be okay, and just continuing to just call life into her body. This process went on for at least 20, 30 minutes, because even though a car did come up and call 911, the ambulance got lost and thought that maybe they weren't supposed to come out to where we were. And so this gave us a really huge amount of time to be in fear and trembling, but also in authority and praying over her body, while listening to Lauren Daigle singing over and over, you say I am loved, you say I'm yours, you say I'm yours. And it was just a moment of coming in alignment and agreement that Ireland's life belongs to the Lord. And then there was a moment after about 20, 25 minutes where all of a sudden there was this huge gasp of air, and she finally took a breath, and her body was trembling and shaking, and we just held her until the ambulance came and they were able to put her inside. And my husband went with in the ambulance, and the entire way in the car at that moment as well, I felt like it wasn't God saying, like, pray for her safety. It was, pray that every promise I have told you about her comes to pass, because I need you as parents to align with my will for her life. And when we got to the hospital, they obviously took her into the room to be examined. And I don't even know at this point, because I wasn't in the ambulance with her, if she was talking. I didn't know what was going on. But the next face that they brought to us was a chaplain to come in and pray over us. And they took us into a side room. And this was not feeling good. This was feeling like a movie again. Why are we going into this room? Let us see our daughter. Why do we need a chaplain to come? To me, that like almost triggered an emotional response of he was there to help us for some intense grieving that we were going to need to prepare for. But it was the exact opposite. The doctors ended up coming into the room, telling us we could come and see her. They looked at the pictures of the car. They had no idea how not only she was alive, but how she only came away with these two little like blisters on her thumbs. And the doctor said, we think that she got these blisters because she was gripping the steering wheel really tight, and maybe it caused some blisters. And I looked at her hands and I said, no. I made her rake this weekend. She got 2 blisters from raking. And they just looked at us a little bit like we were crazy, but everybody was just so grateful to be able to look at Ireland and see that she was alive and talking and well.
There is power in sharing your God story. Maybe you've got a story like this. We're trying something new on The Unfolding. We want to share your short stories, and we're going to do that on some Tuesdays coming up, along with the longer stories we share on Fridays. Do you have a story? Send me an email, theunfolding@wowgod.com. Don't be afraid to let people know the great things that God has done. The Unfolding is a Wow God production, a ministry of the University of Northwestern St. Paul. Discover more at wowgod.com.